Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Welcome back, everyone. It's good to see you again. Our program is Ask Abouna or Father a Question. And we've already discussed talking about issues of Christian drinking and also Christian dating. Today's program is about tattooing. As a Christian, should we get a tattoo? What kind of tattoo? And do you think our church allows it? And what does the Bible say about it? So we'll discuss all this hopefully in today's episode. And today we have three wonderful youth from our church, and they're going to introduce themselves and tell us, we know the three of you from the same church, so from St. Mary's, East Brunswick in New Jersey, America. So go ahead. We'll start with you, Christine.
Hi, I'm Christine Khalil.
I'm Mark William.
I'm Angela Masiha.
Yeah, that's easy. Okay, so let's start with the issue of tattooing. Now, I'm not going to ask you if you have tattoos because I know. The question is it okay to have a tattoo or not? So just in your own words, what do you think? Your personal view, not the church yet. This is my part. Your personal view. Go ahead, Angela.
Personally, I think it is okay to get a tattoo on your body under many circumstances. One of the main ones is through the approval of not just your father of confession, but also your parents. I think having a tattoo, as we know, is like a very permanent thing on your body. So like, we shouldn't, make this decision just by ourselves, like without thinking of any other person in consideration. So yeah, I think for me personally, I think if it's small and nothing too, showy, revealing, if you're doing it for the right purposes, I don't see why not.
So when we're talking about, what you're talking about is a cross, of course.
I'm talking about a cross.
Yeah. Nothing else.
Religious. No. Like,
Okay. Just to make sure that the viewers know what we're talking about.
No. Just
no image, no names.
No.
Just a simple
a pure cross.
Cross. Doesn't have to be Coptic, but just a cross.
Just a cross.
Going off of that, I
go
always
ahead.
think that it's okay to get a tattoo as long as it is religious. Like, it's a verse, a cross. Like, I never really thought outside of that, but in terms of like whether or not it's okay, I always thought like, okay, if it's religious, then you kind of get like a little bit of a pass.
But
then again, we have like something like getting a verse. Like people have verses like all over their arm, and it's like huge and out there, and like it depends also on the purpose you're doing it for. So
exactly.
if you're
What's the motive?
Exactly.
if you're putting a whole verse on your arm, just showing off in the summer, like, look, I got a verse on my hand and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Then it's not really the right purpose. Then you have, on the other hand, people that like have small crosses and on like their right hand, and they say, oh, like, I like, it's for me to like every time I sin, I look at my hand and I see the cross right there, and it helps me. So it depends on the cause.
But my question is, isn't you wearing a cross, and you're all wearing a cross, isn't that sufficient, or do you have to have a tattoo on your hand just to remind you that you're a Christian?
I don't think you have to. I think it's just more like if you can have it and you can, because anyone can wear a cross. Anyone can just wear it,
Okay.
But like, I'm not saying that you need the tattoo to show that you're a true believer and that's your faith and permanent ink on my body, that means but like, it's definitely another thing that you can add to your image along with like your actions and like personality and everything that shows that you are a Christian.
Does it prove that
it doesn't prove
you're a better Christian by having a cross on your
No.
hand? Is it a cultural thing, or is it?
There is also a tradition.
Yeah,
I mean, because in Egypt, I know like in Egypt there's
Exactly.
certain like they use their tattoo as proof to get into the monasteries. Like if you don't have the
That's the
ID.
point.
In the meetings.
In the so
church.
like I've seen like something like in Egypt, it's very like traditional there. Like everyone comes from Egypt with their small little tattoos.
Small
Yeah.
tattoo, So we've taken that from them.
Oh yeah.
Actually, someone told me also that the men who went to war and their bodies were blown apart, the only way they'll know them if they're Christian by the cross on their hand. So they will take them and put him into a Christian cemetery. So that was the other thing. But what about people who put tattoos just to show off? Nothing religious. What do you think of that?
Then there's no point of getting it, honestly. I mean, wearing a necklace would do it, unless you really want to show off and like say, oh, either I got like money or like, oh, I'm religious and I want to show people that I go to church every day, which is not the way it's supposed to be.
Okay, so if it's a person who's doing this glamorous, very large tattoo on his arm, it's not because he feels it's something Christian to do, but he's showing others, especially if he's always rolling up his sleeve and showing people his tattoo. So it'd be more of not glorifying God, but more of telling people, hey, I have a tattoo, even if it's, if it's Christian. And what about cultures in the West? What are they doing with tattoos these days?
It's very common.
Yeah,
It's like
very common.
Yeah.
nothing. People get tattoos like every day, as if it's like just another casual thing to do in a day.
It's amazing, isn't it?
People don't even realize like it's a permanent thing to your body. Like this is something that like you can't take back.
Sanity.
I mean, you
Well,
can
never.
take back given like a lot of other consequences on the side, but like it's a huge thing.
So what do you? Yeah.
Now that we see a lot of famous people like on TV and like playing sports and all the people around us in school and work, and then we think it's fine. Like, why are we different? Why are we the only one that think differently of tattoos? Why
But then-
get a small one while I can get a big one?
But then there's those people. There's people who get these tattoos to like, oh, this famous person got a tattoo. Like, why shouldn't I? And then they come to regret it after. So it's like they come back automatically on their decision without thinking about it. And like I said, like this decision has to be like brought in with like your parents, your father confession, if you're doing it the correct way, in my opinion.
Okay, so you have to, the younger age, someone, you have to get approval of your confession father and your parents. Yeah, I agree with that. Of course, you can't do that behind your parents' back. It's not proper. Or if you're an older age, you're fine doing it. God has given us a means to discern for ourselves and to judge our motives. And St. Paul in Romans chapter 14, verse 23 said, everything that does not come from faith is sin. So that's very clear. Instead of saying that should Christians have tattoos, I think we should ask ourselves, is it okay for me to have a tattoo? So I think it's a personal thing because you're doing it on your own body, and I don't think we should generalize it as Christians should have tattoos, but is it me? Is it okay for me to have one? It's a very controversial issue. People differ within the church and each confession father. Some will say it's okay to have a small cross, and some will say it's better not to have any tattoos at all. So it depends on who you approach, and depends on specifically yourself. So what about if we say that tattoos are permanent? Are we able to take them off? Is there a way to take them off? To get
Now, yeah.
Yeah, now there is.
With the technology.
So do you know what the process is?
There's like a laser remover of like the tattoos.
But they're so expensive.
And
They're super
They can cause
expensive.
infections.
A lot of
and,
infections. Sometimes you have to go for certain like rounds. Like you have to go more than once to get a small thing removed. So like it's definitely a hassle. Like you would just save the trouble if you just didn't get the tattoo to begin with.
And why would people put tattoos on when they didn't want? They're going to take them off eventually.
I feel like it's just like the idea of tattoos are so glamorized that people just do it for fun. Like it's not even, they don't think about 6 months from now how I'm going to feel about it, 6 years from now, whatever it is. It's just about, oh, this looks nice. I saw this online, especially now with social media. Like everyone's getting one, or like they want to just be able to post and show everyone that like, oh, I'm cool too. And then they, come to regret it.
I think
whenever
some
then.
people also like sometimes they just make a bad decision at a bad time. So like some people are out having fun, maybe drinking a little bit, and like we talked about before, like they're all of like their decisions get impaired, like they just not thinking straight. And sometimes they'll just, let's go get a tattoo, like spontaneously, but they don't think, once again, like the long term, like what that actually can mean.
And I can start also at a good cause, like getting a small cross on your right hand, and that's it. And then it becomes like addicting kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like every once in a while, I was like, yeah, I got bored of this one. I need a new one.
Like building
And
on
like
it.
get more of it,
Yeah.
more of it until you
Oh,
regret
but a
it.
cross is a cross. It's a blessing.
No,
So I don't
I'm
know.
saying like it goes to like more than a cross.
Yeah.
So like it starts with something small, something religious, or like has a purpose behind it, but then it goes out of hand.
For a person who loves someone, writes their names on
their
there.
names.
Write their names, their
And then
initials.
what happens when they
Yeah.
they have enough of them and they leave them? It has to go off, doesn't it?
And I know people like would get like kids and they add their names every single time they
Oh
have
yeah,
a kid.
every time they
just
have a
add
kid,
the
they add
name.
another name.
I'm like, okay,
Or go
it's
to
not gonna stop.
Jerusalem. I know people go to Jerusalem and they put the dates on whenever they go to Jerusalem to remember the dates they went to the Holy Land, which is it's symbolic. It's interesting. Yeah.
So since there's like nothing really like definite, like here are the guidelines, what you can get, what you can't get. How do we draw the line in this case?
Let's look at the Bible's view on tattoo. And is it a sin or isn't it? And we know the famous verse. It goes back in the Old Testament in the book of Leviticus, chapter 19, verse 28. And it instructs us not to print or do any marks upon your body. And apparently, back in those days when the Israelites were living in Egypt, the Egyptians used to mark their gods on their bodies, okay? So the god will be with them, and they had many gods, of course. And that, I think, Moses was trying to explain to the people, do not follow the footsteps and putting deities on your arms, okay? Because God is within you. It doesn't have to show on your body. The other thing is that many of the non-believers used to make markings, scratchings, in a form of worship back then. So this will also harm you and harm your body, and of course can cause a lot of diseases for you. I think this is what Moses was trying to say to his believers. So if we say that a cross is a deity, I think we remember that when we put the cross on our hand, we remember what the meaning of the cross, that Christ came, took our sins, suffered, and died for us on the cross. I think that's the whole idea. We're not putting the image of Christ, we're not putting any other religious image, it's just a simple cross reminding us of Christ. If we go to the New Testament, it talks about, St. Paul talks about this, about the body. So we have around 4 principles. We'll go through them quickly. So 1, we should glorify God in our bodies, right? So we should not make any markings. St. Paul says in Corinthians, do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have from God, and you are not your own? Who's saying this body is not ours? We're renting it from God to use it on earth. For you were bought at a price, therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which is God's. Also, we must exalt our bodies through Christ. St. Paul says in Philippians 1, verse 20, Christ will be magnified in my body, whether by life or by death. The other point is we should obey God in everything we do. And St. Peter says we ought to obey God rather than men, and by obeying God is by obeying his teachings. And if God says we should not do markings on our body, then we should follow that. We shouldn't engage in lustful and licentious behaviors in our lives. And the book of Romans chapter 6 verse 12, St. Paul says, therefore do not let sin reign in your mortal body, that you should obey it in its lusts. And St. John says in first letter of John, chapter 2, verse 16, for all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of the life is not of the Father, but of the world. So if you're lusting to do tattoos on your body, then it's part of the lust of the world that we should not follow. or if the idea comes to you. And the last point is we shouldn't engage in questionable behaviors. And this is in the first letter of Timothy, chapter 5, verse 21, when he says, "Test all things, hold fast what is good, abstain from any form of evil." So if you feel that this tattoo will cause someone to stumble, then don't do it, even if it's a cross. If your parents don't want you to have a tattoo at a young age, then I think you shouldn't have it. You all agree? Because parents come to me and say, "Abouna, my son wants a tattoo," and it's a small cross, but they disagree. So what do you think?
It's still like, I feel if it's something like, bottom line, if your father of confession is okay with it, then you can talk to him to like kind of convince your parents to say okay. But if your parents are really against it, then at least you can wait a little bit, because they know you better. They know that you're not at that maturity level to get it. So just wait a little bit, and maybe in the future you can get it.
Okay. What I want to end up this program with is that if you have a tattoo, will it affect your salvation?
No.
No, not at all. So, it's okay to have a small cross. I think we'll end up with that. Thank you so much for coming and talking with us and asking all these nice questions. We'll see you again. We end up this program of Christian Tattoos. God bless you and take care.